Hey guys, this is Corey from Rigwell. Thank you so much for buying a Nomad bed. I'm going to show you how to put it together in this video. Let's start with a tool list. You can check that out here. We've made one change since filming this video, and that's this front face. So this used to be one continuous piece, and now it is 3 pieces. So you have 2 side panels and the main front big piece. The rest of the video is the same, so you'll see in the video the front face, that's just 1 piece, but yours will have 3 pieces, but everything else is the exact same. First thing we need to do is lay out our pieces just like I have here. So you can see on this big front face that one side will have countersinks and one side will not. So let's put the countersink side down on the table. And then this is our left and right piece, so they will have these notches here, and then a flange on the other side. So this one will just go down on top of the front face, and our bolt will go through that countersink, and then our nut will go on the back. So let's get one side started. We're going to use our 5/32 Allen and a 7/16. I just have a socket, my impact here. We got our flatheads and our nylocks. And you have 4 on each side. So I'm going to put it through the bottom, through the countersink, and then put the nut on, and we can just get them all hand started for now. Okay, now that we got both sides started, I'm going to go ahead and tighten these down, but I'm not going to go all the way. You can see there's quite a bit of slop and adjustment in these. So we're going to go back through at the very end and tighten all the bolts down. So right now, let's just tighten them down where these guys aren't flopping around, but they can still move and be adjusted. You can see now that this looks exactly like the same part in the rest of this video. Instead of being 1 piece, it's 3 pieces. So let's carry on and get the rest of this thing built. How I like to build these things is face down. So I've put a little foam here on our table, and I'm just going to lay this down. So how mine is orientated now, I have the bigger hole up top here and the smaller hole at the bottom. So this is the bottom, that's the top. There's a hardware bag for each individual part of the Nomad bed. So this one's labeled driver box, that's what we're working on here. And everything you need to assemble this is in this bag. There's 3 brackets we're gonna need for the lower bit here. There's a middle one. This guy has kind of 2 notches up here. So this guy is gonna go face down like that. Your 3 holes will line up. So that's the middle bracket. And then you're gonna have a left and a right. You can kind of line these up easily. They have the angle and the 2 holes, so just find the matching 2 holes. So that guy will just go like that. And then the other side is just a mirror image of it. Same thing. That guy will just go like that. So let's get these put on. These are gonna use the 5/8 flathead bolts, and then the nuts on the back. We're gonna take our clip nuts and install all of these. So there are 1, 2, 3 rectangular holes on each side of this front face. So if you've never seen a clip nut, I'm gonna link a video right here or in the description somewhere of how to install these. I've done a bunch of videos on them. Super easy. They have 2 little ears. Basically, you just put one of the ears in the rectangle, take your flat blade screwdriver and push it on the other ear, and you'll hear a nice satisfying click, and that means it's in properly. Since we're doing clip nuts, let's grab the shelf. So this is the orientation of the shelf here. This would be the bottom side. So if you flip it over, all the clip nuts we're gonna put in are gonna go in from the back side. It's the same process. Find the hole, stick the ear in and use the flat blade and snap it into place. Let's do the rest of these on the shelf. And again, here's a close-up, and the shelf is upside down right now. So you can see two little ears there, and then the main body of the clip nut is on the back side. Now that we got the clip nuts put in our shelf, we're ready to get this on the front big face frame here. So you can see this little lip right here, that faces upwards towards the top of the cabinet. So we're gonna use the middle set of holes, and you can either use a 4mm or a 5/32 Allen key. And we're back to our flathead screws again. And we'll put those in the sides here, one on one side, come to the other side. And we don't want to make these super tight. I would leave all the hardware a little loose until we're all the way done, then we'll tighten everything at the very end. Now that we have the two side bolts in, the rest are going to go through the front of the face frame into those clip nuts. It's a little hard to show on camera. So there are the first two, and then I can kind of shimmy this around so I can get the other two as well. So here's a better look at what we should have. We just put in this side bolt, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 straight through the front, and the other side bolt. Next, we're going to deal with our two back upright supports. So these guys are mirror images of each other, so there will be a left and a right. We got to put some clip nuts in these. It can be a little confusing, but you can see there's countersinks only on one side. So there's countersinks on this side, and then there's 3 rectangles. We're going to take our clip nut here and the ears, and we're going to put it in from behind. So try to show that as best possible. So I'm going to flip this over. On the side that doesn't have the countersinks, I'm going to install these clip nuts. What makes it a little confusing is there's one more clip nut hole on the other side here. So this one, we're actually going to install the clip nut on this direction. So how do I explain this? the opposite side of the ones that we just installed. There's a countersink holes and the 3 clip nuts. That's the front, the back's on that side, and then the one that's opposite that gets installed the other way, so the body is facing up. Now we'll take our uprights and find the one that has 2 countersunk holes on the top, and you'll have just 1 countersunk hole in the bottom. That's going to line up when you lay it flat here. You're going to have 1 countersunk hole here and 1 clip nut here. That should line up perfect. So we'll just take our flatheads again, and this top one's a clip nut. Screw that on, and then it kind of holds itself there. The bottom one, a flathead, and a nut on the back. Flipping to the other side. I'm gonna flip my whole cabinet around right now, just filming this so you can guys see me do it. And I like to hang this over because we're gonna need to get to the front of all these holes here. So this piece here is the top plate. You'll know you have the right one because there's a D on this one. We're working on the driver's side, and on the other one there's a P. So can't get those confused. We'll take this and just set it right in here. Okay, the little notches face up. First I have 2 holes over here that are getting flatheads and nuts on the back. I have 2 more down here at the bottom. We'll flip over to the other side, do the same thing. And we have 2 more, they're kind of on this angle on either side. We just put in these 2, and this one on both sides. The next step is really hard to show, but you're gonna find this little skinny piece. It's got a bunch of bends in it. This actually holds the upper track for the sliding doors. So that'll get VHB onto this in a later step. But you'll see you have some tabs that have holes in them. That's gonna go face down, and the bolts that are coming up through this top plate are gonna capture these tabs. That leaves us with 2 holes to fill yet, and those are just gonna be our standard flathead 5/8. So here's a close-up from inside the back of the cabinet. So you can see this tab is facing downward, and this is the 3/4 bolt, one in the middle and one on the end. And you can see that tab is facing down, and the sliding track is going to get stuck right to this face here. The next piece we need is actually out of the 144 kit. So this is the back panel, we could call this guy. It's got all the holes. This is where you mount into the wall of the van. So this guy is going to sit flat right on top of this cabinet. That lip is to the inside. You can see it's not overlapping this face, it's behind it. And it will use these countersunk holes to get bolted in. Those are going to be our flatheads. So those just go straight in from the top. Might have to lift up just slightly to get them to line up. You can reach your hand in and get the nut on. Now that we got those on, the rest of these holes, so you'll have 3 on one side and 3 on the other side, are the button heads. So these guys, the button head, will go in from the inside and through the back, and they'll get nuts on the back. So you have 3 on this side and 3 on the other side. The next piece we're putting on is the brace. So this brace spans from the top to the shelf, and can be a little bit tricky to put on. When it's all finished and you're looking at the cabinet, this R should read correctly. It shouldn't be backwards, but if you get it backwards, that's okay. I won't blame you. So with the R facing the right way, we're looking at the back of the cabinet, obviously. The front of this bracket goes in front, and the back goes in back of this shelf. So this bracket doesn't go like this, and it doesn't go just on the inside. The front is on the inside and the back is on the outside. Just the way the bends line up, that's how it works out. So let me grab a couple button heads. They'll go in, get out of the way here. They'll go in from the front, kind of hang there. And then your nuts will go on the back. Grab ourselves 2 more button heads. Step when we had the cabinet laying down, that's easy to overlook. There's these 2 clip nuts in the back. They're pretty hard to get to when the cabinet's laying down. So now it's upright, you can go in from the front and just put these button heads through those clip nuts right here. And then the other side, this clip nut. Here's a close-up look at the R, reading correctly. The front of the bracket's in front of this plate, and the bottom is behind it. And then these are the button heads we just put in that second step. One there, and one in that corner as well. Next, we're gonna put on our extension piece. So you'll see on this top plate, there's 2 holes in the top and 1 on the side. So that's gonna correspond to this piece here. You got 2 countersunk holes and 1 button head hole here. So this guy just simply lines up. You grab your button heads down through the top and put a nut on the bottom. And then our button head will go through this way and a nut on the inside. One note, the driver side and passenger side are different for these extension pieces. You can't get them mixed up. Driver side's bigger, passenger side is smaller. This next step is optional. This is the flare wing. So this is specifically cut for the flare space, and you'll see it has a notch on this side here. So this is the top of our cabinet, and this guy kind of links right in here, and the notch is down there at the bottom. You can't put this on backwards because the notch won't line up, and it's specific to the driver and passenger side. Again, if you don't have flare space, you won't be using these at all. So again, we're going to be using our flathead screws with our flare wing here. We'll just set that into place. Flatheads go down through the top and reach inside. Put the nut on. And here's a close-up of that notch. You can see these two pieces are keyed together. Once this is nice and bolted down, it'll be nice and flush. Next up, we're gonna prep our bottom door. So that's this piece here. This guy will have two big cutouts. These are for the latches. And then you'll have two countersink holes at the bottom. You'll also have this little secondary bracket. It's got two holes on the top. That goes behind the door here. If I can hold this up and show you. Goes behind the door, and then your flatheads go straight through there. These 45-degree angles on either side go downward. So let's put those on now. Next, we're going to work on our latches. So these guys come with a little back bracket already on there. So we're just going to grab our Phillips using a drill gun here. So I can just spin it off quick. So there's the back bracket. So this you simply put through the hole, and then on the back side, we'll just reinstall this bracket. And we'll do the same thing with the other side. The next two pieces we're going to talk about, this is the water hole cover. So you can see in the shelf on both sides, there's these big holes, and that's to get PEX lines and all your plumbing from the bottom of the cabinet up through the top. If you don't want holes there, we supply this little cover. So that just simply goes on, uses 3 button heads to go down through there, 3 nuts on the bottom. And then this is a water pump bracket that we actually include. This will fit like all the Seaflow and SureFlow standard water pumps. They'll use the top 2 holes in this bottom hole. But we actually already have holes. You can see there's the same pattern right here. So we'll just take our button heads, and we can put this on here for now. Obviously, once you're doing your plumbing, you would do this then. But just for the purposes of the install, I can show you where it goes. There's 3 little rubber bumpers. These guys go in the top. So there's 3 holes up here. You can reach up, get your fingers in there. You can kind of grab the little end of the rubber bumper and just pull it in. These are so when the bed flips over, it'll land on these and not the metal. At this point, it's starting to look like a bed system. The cabinet is built. There's still a bunch of steps to do yet, but what I like to do now is go ahead and tighten all the bolts down. This stops it from being real wobbly, so it's a little more secure to work on in the next few steps. I prefer to tighten the front face first, and then I kind of work my way around to the sides, and then go interior, and just make sure you hit all the nuts and bolts. There's a lot of them. The main nut on the back of all these flatheads is a 7/16, so I like to put that on like an impact driver, so that makes it go a lot quicker. And then just one note, I wouldn't go using the impact driver on any of the clip nut holes, because basically it's just too much torque for the clip nut to handle, and you'll just twist those ears. So just use an Allen key for all those. It's a little slower, but in the end it'll be better. So let's go ahead and tighten all these bolts down now. The next step, we're going to be dealing with our sliding tracks. So you'll have 2 different types of tracks. So you'll have one that you'll notice is deeper, so that always goes on the top, and you'll have the shallower one, which will go on the bottom. It'll sit on the shelf. You'll see that when we get there. So the first step with these guys is to get the felt put on them. So you'll have 2 felt strips here. We have made an in-depth video. I'm gonna link it right here so you can watch that for how to actually put the felt on the tracks. It's a little tricky, but if you just take your time, be real patient with it, it'll go right in there. And that's what's gonna keep your sliding doors nice and quiet for you. So I'm gonna go ahead, put this felt in, and we'll fast forward through it and get to the next step. All right, now that we got our felt all installed in our tracks, you'll have a couple VHB strips with some backing on it. These, we're just gonna flip our tracks around and put the VHB on the back. So there's no right answer here. I like to kind of chop these up either in thirds or in quarters, just so I have a few pieces that I can put along the track. So I'm gonna do that now. Not being overly careful of how I cut these, just kind of chopping them up. So now I'll do 2 pieces at the end and kind of just equally space it out from the end. Press it on there nice and firmly. Make sure you clean off any dust or any debris that might be on the back of the tracks before you do this. You can even use some like denatured alcohol. Okay, now we got all our VHB stuck to the tracks. The tricky part here is actually peeling the red backing off here. Sometimes if you can't get your fingernail under there, you can use a razor blade to pick them up. And sometimes they're just super stubborn. So let's peel all these backers off. Now that we got the backing peeled off of both of our tracks, we can stick them on the cabinet. So it's very, very critical here to make sure that the deeper track goes on the top, because if you mess that up, the sliding doors, they won't go in properly. So here we have the deeper track, and there's a little extra lip here that's gonna go towards the inside of the cabinet. So we're gonna take it where it's nice and flush in the front, and we're just gonna simply stick it underneath here onto this bracket inside. This face can be flush with the back of this face. So again, a little difficult to show on camera, but super easy in reality. Just come back here. You can kind of find where you're at right there. Try to get it in the middle and just push up. And once you're on that bracket, you just give it a really firm push down on all that VHB. And that's it. So we're gonna do the exact same thing on the bottom track. Again, we have the skinny track, and we're gonna take the part that's got the little extra tab, that's gonna face interior. The flat part is gonna be up against this front lip. So we can just get it in here and center it the best we can. It's not super critical, but you know, center it up as best as you can, and then just let it drop. And again, we're just gonna push it down really firmly. And here's a close-up of the track installed, and then the upper track. Let's talk about the straps that come with the Nomad bed. So first up, the left and the right box, those are gonna be together. So these straps are identical for either side. So you're gonna have 2 long ones with no loops on the end, and then you're gonna have 2 shorter ones with the loop. So real simple, you'll have 2 of these G hooks, and simply the loop just goes through, and that's what will hold your mattress in place. So you have 2 G hooks there. You'll also get a handful of these little snaps, these black snaps. And basically what these do is they hold the strap. So once you pull this up through the hole, you can punch a little hole with something sharp, like something like this, and then clip that strap on, and now this can't fall back down through the bed. So that's what those are. And then to hold the bed up, you're gonna have a wall bracket. So this will go on your wall. We'll show you a little more detail of that. You got the hardware kit for the wall bracket. And then you have 2 more straps. Both of these do not have loops on them. and that is because they go through this tactical buckle. This is what allows you to take the bed up and down easily. Now we're inside the van. You can see the bed is in stowed mode here, and these slots, there's a slot here and there's a slot on that side. If you have a 144, your wall bracket will go on to this side, so towards the front of the van, and in a 170, the wall bracket goes at the rear. So there's no exact position that this has to be placed. You just have to put it in a spot that you can get a really good purchase on the metal body with the riv nuts. So the 3 riv nuts and 3 bolts hold that strap on. And then you can see the shorter seat belt is for this section, and then the longer one is for this section, and it just gets fed through that tactical buckle. You can also trim these to length. Now that we have all of our straps sorted, we're going to take the longer one, and these are the same for the passenger and driver's side cabinet. Only difference is the wall bracket ones are different. So we have our longer strap that's always going to come in from behind here. If you're using the flares, there'll be a slot in the flare. If you're not using the flare wings, there'll be a slot right underneath that. So you can kind of pull this up through, and there's a bunch sewn on the bottom, so it's not going to pull through. Then we can take our little snaps here. These are just little tiny snaps that'll be included in the kit. Use something sharp, anything you should have sharp laying around that you can make a little hole. So just pop a little hole right above where the strap comes through the slot. So now I have a little hole there, but now you can just put your snap through and clip on the other side. Okay, so you got to make sure the hole's big enough, or else these are a bit of a challenge to get in, but you can see now that this strap cannot fall back down in here. So that's what we wanted to do. Now that strap is captured, we could take our G-hook, and the hook part faces downward. You could thread this however you want. I kind of like the logo to show, so I put the strap in the top and then put the rest of it in the second hole here. And then, so that's done for the rear strap. And now onto the front strap. So you can see there's another slot here. This one will have the loop in it, so you'll have to pinch the loop to get it up through. All right, mine was really tight. So now we got the front one through. You can do the same thing. You can put that little snap here if you want. Since these holes are pretty tight, it generally doesn't fall through. Usually the back one will tend to more, but once you have your mattress in here, simple as connecting your G-hook into the loop. And just like that, now your mattress is not going to fall on the ground. One thing I wanted to touch on, you're going to have a pack of bolts and rib nuts. These are 5/16 and they have a flange head bolt. So you'll have that for both the driver and passenger side cabinets. These slots here, there's vertical slots and horizontal slots in the back of the bed here. Those are where we mount the bed into the body of the van. So you can get it adjusted just how you like, take measurement on either side, and really you can use any of these holes and the supplied 5/16 bolts to bolt the whole bed into the actual sprinter, and there's 4 for each side. All right, we're moving on to the flip kit. So find the panel. They both are gonna have the R logo in them. One of the panels is gonna look different on the bottom. It's gonna have these little tabs. So this is where the crossbars are gonna sit. And to hold those crossbars, we have belay straps, but we have to put in what's called a footman loop, and that's in these 2 holes and these 2. So there's 4 total. So you'll have a hardware pack named footman loops. They're these little silver guys, basically a strap holder, and they have bolts and nuts. You're going to need a 5/64 Allen key and a 9mm socket wrench to put these on. So the bolts just pop through the front of the panel. You can get a nut started on the back. Second one on there, and now we can go ahead and tighten those down. Once these are tight, we'll go ahead and do the other 3. Here's the top side of the footman loops. Should be very flush with the flatheads. And then up close at the back side. One more step while we're working on this specific panel. Grab 2 of your rubber bumpers. You can flip the panel up. And you got a hole up here on either corner. You can get behind here and pull a little tab. So that guy's on. And then same in this corner. Now we have 4 more rubber bumpers to put in on these outside holes here. These ones you can't get your hand behind to hold the little tab on the rubber bumper. So if you use something sharp like a little pick or even like a really small flathead screwdriver, you can kind of stick them down in here and then just work around the rubber there and just push it down in the hole. Just like that. And when you have it all the way in, they'll spin really nice. So we'll do that on the rest of these. Swapped out for the other panel. So this is the desk panel. This will have a big piece of wood that fills in here, will be the standing desk. So we need to flip this around to this side. And you'll notice if you look in here, we have the same rectangles. These are clip nut holes. So that's the first thing we need to do. We need to get our clip nuts. And these ones can be a little trickier because you're putting them in through these holes. But same process as before. They snap right into place. Now that we're done prepping the 2 panels, I have them laying here to explain their orientation. Now this is one of the trickiest parts of building this system, but let me try to explain it. So you have the R logo and they are both facing the same direction. Both of these panels are facing upward. You also have little arrow indicators right here. So you have an arrow pointing that way and you have the same arrow right here. So if you have all that lined up, you know you have these 2 panels in the correct orientation. There's holes on the inside here and holes here. So there'll be a hinge right there. And then there's holes on this side. There'll be a hinge there. And all the way on this side, you will not have a hinge. So this is where it lands onto the other bed box. And then this panel is the desk panel. So this will flip up, have the desk on this side, and this will lay on top of this panel. So we have our desk panel on this side, and we have, we can call it our crossbar panel, but this is panel 1 and panel 2. We're gonna take the desk panel and flip it over and set it on top of the first panel. Now you see I put a little piece of foam in here. I just don't like when these panels touch each other. They won't once they're in the van, but just for assembly. So now you can see we have the holes both facing each other. Our arrows at the top of the panels are still both facing in the same direction. And our hinge is gonna bolt on just like this. So there's a lot of bolts here. These are all gonna be the 1024 5/8 flatheads. You can use 1/8 Allen key, fits the bolts, and then a 3/8 socket will fit the nylock nuts. So we're gonna go ahead and put them all on. I like to leave everything loose until it's all on and then go back through and tighten everything. So let's get these all on now. Now that I have all the nuts and bolts on the top here, going into the desk panel, I need to flip this over because I can't get to the back side of these ones. And now we can repeat that same process down along this side. Now that we have all the bolts hand tight, I like to make sure the panels are totally flushed up on this end where the hinge is, and this direction and this direction, because now we'll just go ahead and tighten all these down. We can flip it over so we can tighten the other side. So let's go ahead and tighten this hinge and then we'll move on. Now that we got these all tightened down, we have one more hinge to do. We're gonna need to flip the whole panel assembly over. Now we have a set of holes on the top here, and we have our second hinge. So this is really critical. If you make kind of a 90-degree bend in the hinge, the top holes are gonna go here, and the bottom flap is gonna hang down. So again, you have your top set of holes, your bottom set of holes. We're gonna be using the top set of holes right onto here, and then the bottom set will be hanging down. So let's go ahead, put them all on hand tight, just like we did, and then we'll tighten them all down, and then we can finally get it onto the bed box. Now we have all the hinges on, it's time to connect the panels to the bed box. So this is the passenger side. It's the only one that's gonna have holes that allow you to put the flip panels on. This is really nice to have two people to kind of help steady the panels while you put the bolts and nuts in. But if you don't, I put these microfiber cloths up here just in case, so I'm not like banging and scratching around on the powder coat here. So let's grab the panels and we'll show you how to put it in. So now that I have the panel here, you can see I'm not quite lined up, so we want the front edge of this to be lined up with the front of the cabinet. So we kind of just slide it down. And I'm using the wall here to kind of steady it, but you probably want to do this in the van after you have the box connected to the wall. So if I kind of just pull this up, my goal here is to get a couple screws started. Kind of lean this so it holds itself. And I got one in, and I can go to the back side here and get the nuts started. So now I got a couple bolts and nuts started. This thing's gonna stay here. You can kind of use the back panel and prop it outward so it kind of holds itself up, or have a buddy hold it. Now we just need to repeat the same process. We'll go put all our 1024s in, put the nuts on the back side, and then we'll tighten the whole thing down. Now that we have the bed panels all installed, we can focus our attention on the crossbars. So I went ahead and pre-installed the 3 rubber bumpers on here, just like we did in the previous step. You kind of just get those guys pushed in. And these crossbars are meant to sit on these tabs here. So before we go ahead and install these, we do include a strip of felt, and I like to cut some little squares and put them right here above each of these little ears. And that's just so when we put the crossbar down in, they fit nice and snug, and you don't have metal on metal rubbing, so you won't wear out your powder coat over time. So again, you just take a crossbar, they have these little kind of tabs, those go downward, and you can kind of just press them in. And so they stay on their own there, but when we're traveling, your kit will come with these belay straps. I like to put them in through the bottom, around the top hook, and then you can kind of double it back on itself, just like that. You can kind of do the straps however you want, but that's how I like to do them. We're now ready to get the desk panel in, but before that we need to prep these 2 long skinny strips. So these guys, if you look close, the square clip nut hole is actually offset to one side. So the side that's skinnier, that side will be outward, and the thicker side will face inward on this panel, and that'll be for both of the sides. This skinny side will be towards the outside, just like this one. The skinny side is over here, so that will go up. So we're gonna put our clip nuts in, just like all the other clip nuts. We'll flip this over, and we can use our flat blade to pop these in. So I'm gonna go ahead and install all the clip nuts now. Here's a close-up of the correct way for these pieces. So you can see the skinnier sides over here and the deeper sides over here. This is just gonna go underneath these holes just like that. We have our 3/4 inch flathead bolts, and all we wanna do is put these through the holes and just barely get the bolt started into the clip nut, so it just holds it and just kind of hangs there. we're now ready to put our desk panel in. If you take a look at this guy, there's some slots here and here. You'll have a deeper side and a shallower side, and that will line up as well. On the desk here, you'll have a shallower side here and a deeper flange on this side. So just make sure you have that in the correct orientation. And then another thing, you can look down at the bottom here, there's an angle cut, and there's also an angle in the desk panel. So we're gonna start by putting the deep side in first, and those notches are meant to go around the screws that we just put in. So you should be able to just slide it in. All right, and now we can just straighten it out. And our center holes here will line up with the clip nuts. And these are our, we call them furniture screws. They got this nice wide head on them. You'll have 4 of these, and they just go right into the clip nuts. So I just started those hand tight, and now we just want to make sure we can't see any of those grooves that are cut out. So you can adjust the desk panel. This looks good, and I can't see any of those slots anymore. So now I'll go ahead and tighten down the center ones, and then we can go ahead and tighten down the outside ones. And remember, do this by hand with an Allen key, not an impact driver, or you'll twist those clip nuts and kind of mess them up. So let's tighten all these bolts down now. Next up, we're going to put our wood side panels on. So these guys are pretty simple to tell. There's a little 45-degree angle back on the bottom side. That'll always go up against your wall. The front edge is straight, and the back is curved to go up against your wall panel. So we already put the clip nuts in the bed here, so really easy. You just put this guy up and take your furniture screws, the ones with the bigger heads, and you simply just screw them in. Next up, we're going to put the sliding doors in here, and as a reminder, the center bolt and the 2 outside bolts are the ones that hold the track in for the sliding door. So we want to make sure those are loose so that we have some play to put the sliding doors in, and then we can go back and tighten those after the doors are in. Now that my track is loose, I can take a door, kind of kick the back end in, find the front slot of the track, and then just simply lift it up and pull it over, and that one's done. And then take my next door, slide it in, same process, find the back track, like that, and slide it over the bottom track, like that. And now we can go back and tighten our center bolt and the 2 outside bolts. One last note on the sliding doors, we do provide some of these felt pads, and you can cut one off and put them in between these 2 doors if you ever do have any rattling between them. But usually with the felt and the tracks, they're pretty quiet, so that's something you always can do down the road. We pre-assembled this bottom door in one of the previous steps. Just want to mention there's quite a bit of adjustment with these 2 bolts here and that plate that's behind there, so you can make it go up and down, and basically that is to get the gap perfectly aligned all the way around the door. The other thing you can do with these latches is there's a screw back here, so this screw you can put out or in, and then there's a little lock nut there. So once you get it adjusted right, screw down the lock nut and make it tight, and basically that'll make it so when you put this in and close these, they'll be nice and tight on the backer plate there, and you won't get any rattle. And that's a wrap building the Nomad bed. So if you haven't already built the other side, it's the same exact process as building this side. It's even easier because you don't have the 2 flip panels. If you guys have any questions while you're building it or installing it in your van, please feel free to give us a call or shoot us an email. We're always down to help out. Thanks again so much for your support. We'll catch you in the next video. See ya.